the expert type of witnesses that we heard last week. We heard from a DNA expert. We heard from the Department of Homeland Security, who checked out the electronic devices of R. Kelly, including the iPad that we've heard about during this explosive testimony, as well as text that he had written. So we're also going to hear from experts to talk about this whole idea of the Stockholm Syndrome. This is how the prosecution is really going to make their case so that the jurors can understand if these girls did want to leave, then why did they stay? Some of them for a half decade. So in terms of those types of witnesses, more expert testimony, and of course we're going to hear from other witnesses. We haven't heard from another young male that we heard about in the indictment. We haven't heard from other people in the indictment too, who were said to have worked on behalf of R. Kelly and have already pleaded guilty to certain crimes involving R. Kelly that would make the case that this was some type of racketeering involved. So a lot more to go. I would say that we are halfway there.
Day 14, September 9th, 2021. A woman took the stand to talk about how she started working as a radio station intern in 2003 before meeting Kelly and working for him. This led to what she described as a horrific incident where she was locked up for days, drugged, then sexually assaulted by the defendant. Former employee Diana Copeland highlighted Kelly's stricken policy on keeping his living girlfriends away from men, even requiring their Uber drivers or nail salon techs being female only. Copeland's pay was docked when a scheduled nail salon appointment included a male employee.
Because now we're seeing not just R. Kelly and what he's doing and saying, but we're seeing his staff and people that he is directing, presumably, giving her material that would be inappropriate or for an inappropriate purpose.
Day 15, September 13th, 2021. Court resumed with the direct testimony of Diane Copeland, former personal executive assistant of R. Kelly, who worked for the singer off and on for 15 years. She testified about feeling coerced into doing some bizarre things at his direction. She described one incident in 2019, which R. Kelly asked if she was wired, and being presented with a robe with the understanding that she had to take her clothes off and wear the robe to talk to him, so he could be sure she wasn't wired. Copeland described Kelly as being upset and was asked to write a letter in which she stated, "He has never been physically, verbally, or mentally abusive to anyone." When asked if she was being truthful, she replied that she probably should have said she had never seen him be physically abusive. Asked if she ever got into any verbal altercations with Kelly, Copeland said she acknowledged that exchanges could get heated, usually over fines. She acknowledged there were times when she cried or quit. Copeland also described another letter she wrote at his binding, in which she confessed to stealing money from him and being contrite about it, acknowledging that he was a forgiving person and gushed about how loving and giving he was. And had she simply asked him for the money, she wrote, he would have given it to her. Copeland denied ever stealing money from Kelly. On cross-examination by defense attorney R.KELLY, Copeland said she was being truthful when she described R. Kelly as giving and loving. Copeland said she returned to R. Kelly after leaving because she liked the job, and after a series of heated objections, she acknowledged that fines are common in the music business. She also agreed that she left because she wasn't in sync with Kelly's new management team and that she returned to help Kelly locate lost money. Copeland testified that the singer had no control over his bank account, didn't know where his royalties were going, and didn't even know his own social security number, remarking, "It was a huge problem." She was charged with making sure his household ran smoothly, which included his properties at Olympia Fields and Trump Tower. Copeland agreed that some of the rules that his guests had to follow were made by his wife. Kenneth liked the permission to leave rooms, etc. Kenneth likened the permission to leave rooms, etc. as being no different than the ones the government imposes on its witnesses. Nothing that she had to be escorted to the bathroom when she met with prosecutors. Copeland also agreed that Kelly sponsored extravagant shopping trips for his girlfriends that included an escort, but she did not observe any instances in which he personally stopped them from leaving his home, and when they did, he paid for their travel. A letter written by Copeland was read aloud. The letter stated, "Dear Robert, this is the hardest letter to write. I have stolen money from you. I am truly disappointed in myself and ashamed. You are a forgiving person, giving and loving. I don't feel deserving of your love. I will never betray you again. I love you." However, then the prosecutor asked Copeland to clarify whether she'd ever stolen from the defendant. She denied ever stealing from R.KELLY.
When you have to sign and write all these documents and statements against your own family that could come out that could be embarrassing, when you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement for folks that aren't attorneys and don't understand or know the significance of these things, all of these things explain why people are hesitant to come forward and work with the criminal justice system or work with authorities. And we know that there's a hesitation even without all of those steps. But in this case, with those steps that have been orchestrated and built by R.KELLY specifically with these alleged victims, it does answer some of the questions that are being raised about their behavior. And again, I want to separate our judgment about behavior for people that are doing things that we may consider dumb or we are judgmental about, or that was stupid. But the real focus needs to be on what the team was doing and what R.KELLY was doing, because that's the focus of this trial. That's what prosecution is going to re-remind this jury after we hear from the rest of the testimony and the evidence that's being presented. And to me, that's what stands out. The information that will be used as evidence against R.KELLY and closing arguments to connect the dots, explaining why his behavior was illegal and why he should be held criminally culpable.
Kenneth also tried to get Copeland to confirm that daddy is a term of endearment. He asked her about the lyrics to the song Chocolate Factory, in which Kelly refers to himself as daddy. Copeland said she was unable to recall the lyrics to the song. When asked why she had to knock before exiting the tour bus bathroom, she said it was because the door was located across from the bus's microwave oven and that someone could be walking by the door with hot food or water. Copeland testified that she never served Jane Doe number 6 alcohol, nor did she ever sit outside the stall while Jane Doe number 6 used the bathroom. She also testified that Kelly's team implemented a female-only Uber driver rule for safety reasons. Copeland also testified that she was never instructed to recruit women for Kelly, and that she never heard anyone else instructed to do so. Copeland admitted that she did things because Kelly asked her to do it as her boss. Regarding R.KELLY's literacy, Copeland testified that she communicated with him via text, that he often used talk to text, and before that feature existed, she helped him draft text messages. A woman who prosecutors referred to as Angela testified that she inadvertently walked in on Robert Kelly in the midst of a sex act with Aaliyah, who was 13 or 14 at the time. Angela said she herself was barely 15 when she first met the defendant and had sexual intercourse with him at his apartment. Angela testified after their initial sexual encounter, she saw Kelly every day for years and was encouraged to drop out of school to pursue a singing career with him. She eventually became a backup dancer for Kelly, touring with him in 1992 and 1993. She said Kelly introduced her to Aaliyah on her 13th birthday. and said she would be the next hottest wave, and told Angela that she would serve as one of her backup singers. Aaliyah accompanied Kelly on tour as his protege to get her feet wet, and it was during the tour that Angela walked in on them. A witness simply known as Alex described how Kelly boyfriended him at a party before eventually engaging him as a sexual partner. Alex said Kelly also invited him to participate in countless sexual encounters with a variety of nameless women. He said while he was having sex with different female partners, Kelly watched, masturbated, and recorded that activity on his iPad. Kelly had a rule that he should call him daddy, and when he was having sex with other women, they were not allowed to talk to each other. He conceded that he did not know their names and they often appeared zombie-like. The government's case continues tomorrow.
Telling her that in order for her to work for him, in order for her to be associated with him or affiliated with him or to have a career or do anything, that she had to engage in illegal activity. That's it. That's the racketeering. All the prosecution has to show is that there were at least two separate instances where R. Kelly directed or R. Kelly benefited from illegal behavior that he orchestrated. That's the key. So him telling anyone that paying your dues and the paying the dues was illegal or illicit behavior, that's the racketeering charge right there. I think the prosecution has given a plethora of things to choose from that they can choose to believe. And if they are true, again, more than one, just more than one, it just has to be at least two, then that's the racketeering charge right there.